Well, ta-da! We heard in the Gospel of John today, we hear Jesus continuing to prepare the disciples for his departure, for his death. We've been hearing from the farewell discourse since chapter 14 of John. But this part of the farewell discourse is part of the high priestly prayer. We hear Jesus pray for the disciples on the night before he was to be betrayed. Now, the Gospel of John has no prayer in the Garden of Gethsemane where Jesus prays very humanly, "Take this cup of suffering away." There are no drowsy disciples to stay awake with Jesus. Here, the disciples don't miss Jesus praying for them. This prayer is kind of a meandering, complex, mystical prayer, and it's a little confusing. Did it feel confusing to you? I mean, who gave who to what, and what is it? And well, let's see if we can make sense of it all. All right, I don't know if you heard this, but the first thing that I heard was the word world, or cosmos in the Greek. From the world, on behalf of the world, in the world, not in the world, belong to the world, do not belong to the world, into the world. For John's audience, the world is a pretty scary place. The disciples have been rejected by friends and family for following this new way, and they will soon be abandoned by Jesus, their leader. The rich and powerful will squelch the voices of justice and arrest Jesus in a matter of hours. When you proclaim the reign of God under the reign of Caesar, the world becomes very dangerous. When Jesus refers to the world, he doesn't mean the physical environment, a globe. He's referring to more than just a place. It's that the way things are is dismal. Theologian David Lose in his blog says it this way: it's not a rejection of nature or the environment or our physicality, but rather a deep foreboding that the deck has been stacked against you and that you just can't count on much. That sounds familiar. I think we have all felt that the world was conspiring against us. The way things are is not right. The way things are, the freedom to own a weapon of execution is more important than the freedom of living and the safety of children. The way things are, asylum seekers are persecuted and blamed instead of welcomed, nurtured, and saved. The way things are, free democratic countries get invaded just because an autocratic leader wants to claim the land. The way things are, minimum wage is not enough for a family to feed their children or afford decent housing, while billionaires have so much money they have to hide it overseas. The way things are, transgender children risk being removed from their home if their parents provide life-saving care prescribed by medical professionals. We cannot say gay, read history, wear a mask, or if we have a uterus, we can't make our own medical decisions. The way things are is not right. So we can relate to the disciples' distress. But Jesus says, don't worry about the darkness. You belong to God. He doesn't say there is no darkness or that things will be easy, nor does he guarantee that there will be no trials or tribulations. He says, you belong to God. In God's world, there is light, hope, joy, and love. Within this prayer, there is a call to see things differently, to have hope. Let's put the next slide on the screen that conveys hope. Yeah. Jesus prays an intimate, loving. He prays to an intimate, loving God. A parent who loves, nurtures, and protects. This isn't a judgmental God that sits far away on a throne. You know, that one that's in our imagination and looks like a mean version of Santa Claus who knows when you're sleeping and knows when you're awake and ready to punish you when you don't measure up. No. That's not who Jesus is praying to. The God we hear Jesus pray to is a forgiving, loving, generous God. Jesus says, I protected them and guarded them. And now Jesus is asking God to protect them. Jesus asked God to protect the disciples from the way things are, from the darkness in the world, like a parent who protects their child from harm. We can't keep our children separate from the world, but we can do our best to protect them while they are living in it. Another phrase that jumped out at me in this prayer is when Jesus prays for God to protect them in your name that you have given me so that they may be one as we are one. One with God. Did you hear that? One with God. Jesus prays for the disciples to be one with God, and by extension, we too are one with God. One with God. So what does it feel like to imagine Jesus praying for you? What does it feel like to hear you are one with God? Does it give you courage? How could you fail with the power of God inside you? Do you feel empowered? Imagine what you could do, how much you could give to the world with the power of God inside you. Do you feel joyful? Jesus prayed that they may have my joy made complete in themselves. So today is the last Sunday of the Easter season. So it's only fitting that I talk about butterflies. The UCC commentary by the Reverend Dr. Cheryl A. Lindsay reminded me of how the journey of the caterpillar to becoming a butterfly is often cited as a metaphor for Christ's journey to resurrection. She quotes Scientific American to explain the process. One day, the caterpillar stops eating, hangs upside down from a twig or leaf, and spins itself a silky cocoon, or molts into a shiny chrysalis. Within its protective casing, the caterpillar radically transforms its body, eventually emerging as a butterfly. The caterpillar does something crazy that should cause certain death, but instead, it brings transformation. Reverend Dr. Lindsay says the caterpillar has to give up the familiar and the safe. The caterpillar has to be willing to take that risk, turn itself upside down, enter into an unknown environment, and become something different. I think that's like being a disciple. Being a follower of Jesus in a world full of darkness and hate and selfishness and violence, sometimes requires us to take a risk, leave the familiar, hang upside down, metaphorically speaking. So, beloveds, how will we take risks in order to bring transformation? We can be transformed. We can transform the world with the light and love of God. Because we are prayed for by Jesus, anything is possible. We are protected by God. We are one with God. In the Reverend Dr. Lindsay's words, let us be Jesus' answered prayer. Fly, butterflies, fly. Amen.